farcical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, that is right. Hello, everybody. The SNL Network is on the air right after the Jake Gyllenhaal and Camila Cabello episode of Saturday Night Live to break down everything that we saw tonight, all the sketches, all the moments from everything we saw. And I'm so excited to get to talk about it with the panel we have booked for you this evening, as well as get the thoughts from everybody in the chat as we go through the entire episode. And joining us first is my main man, the man who took my sweetness. It's Sammy Kay. Sammy, how are you?
I'm good. I don't recall exactly when I took your sweetness. You're gonna have to refresh my memory on that one. But I'm doing great. Excited to be on the show tonight to talk about this interesting episode.
Yes, always great to have you, Sammy, and it's always wonderful to get to talk to her on one of these hot take shows. It is the host of our Hollywood Dish podcast, Nicole Rovine. Nicole, how are you?
I'm so good. I was like 11, 17. I was at my friend's birthday party, like 1970s theme. And then 11:29, I was sitting at my couch taking notes. Like, I've been all over the place mentally tonight. And that episode was so good to me. And I'm just like so excited to talk about it.
We'll save the hot takes. Save the hot takes.
I will. I'm so good, though. I'm so good.
Okay, yes. It's too bad you didn't come in your 1970s gear. I mean, that's what, the show was started in 1975. It would have been nice, but we'll save that when we do the hot take show for the George Carlin episode. Okay, joining us as well tonight, I always love talking to this guy about Saturday Night Live. It is Anthony Conway. Anthony, how are you?
I'm good, man. This is my first time watching the show from the West Coast as opposed to being in Chicago. It's not bad being wrapped with the show at 10 o'clock at night. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, very, very jealous of that. We're always up very late. So, this will be really fun. I cannot wait to get all of your hot takes from the evening. I was, racking my brain and thinking of it. So I like to go last on these things to just, hear how the panel thought about the episode. So, Sammy, let me start with you. What is your hot take from the evening?
Ooh, my hot take. As I
was
watching, headline of the episode is, I really think Chris Redd is becoming like the star of this show. I think everything he contributed to this episode and the last couple episodes has been stellar work in my opinion. And looking ahead towards the end of the season and next season, I really think this is his time to be one of the main faces of the show, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely that is one of the headlines of the season, is Chris Redd just continuing to dominate week after week. So, Nicole, what about you? What was your headline or hot take for the evening?
My headline is that this episode, more than any other episode this season, did a really stellar job of having fusion between the sort of old school cast members and the newer cast members. The more people we think of vets and people who it's their first, second, third year, all across the episode. In every sketch almost, it felt like we were getting different dynamics that we don't get every week. And it was a lot of people who are not often paired together and a lot of people who are from different kind of, freshman, sophomore, et cetera, year classes. And it was, the vibes were really there with that. It was really great. That's my headline.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There was some interesting pairings tonight we saw in the sketches, so I think that will be a major storyline for the week to break down, is how these pairs came together, including one of the sketches being anchored by Punky Johnson, which is something we haven't seen, so we'll get to that sketch later in the night and talk about, what we saw throughout the rest of the night. But Anthony, let me go to you. What is your hot take for the night?
My hot take for the night is that Bowen Yang doesn't miss. In every sketch that he's ever popped up in, I'm immediately drawn in. His delivery is impeccable. I know I'm a little bit of a stan, but I love Bowen Yang, and I thought that he crushed it tonight. And honestly, he's been very consistent throughout the entire season.
Yes, he has. And my hot take or headline for the night, and I often say this is a Jon Schneider trope. I often say that, the episodes sometimes, when they're hitting on all cylinders, they're carried by both the host and the writing. I think this week actually was a host episode. I really felt like Jake Gyllenhaal was outstanding tonight. I think he could easily be a cast member on the show. That's how good he was tonight. And I think, except for the Sudeikis and the Fortes, probably one of the only hosts this season that I really say, oh, wow, he could fit into the cast seamlessly. I really loved what I got to see from him. The sketches for me were pretty good. We're going to go through some of them, but just really, I felt like Jake was elevating a lot of the material. And he did remind me of a certain cast member, which I would like to hold until later in the night to tell you which particular sketch he reminded me of this cast member, because I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but I really just I was like, oh, wow, I am getting vibes from him tonight. So I'm looking forward to telling you and the rest of the chat exactly what I feel about Jake Gyllenhaal throughout the night. But let's start with our cold open. So chat, please put your comments in and we will bring them up on screen. And let's start with something, I guess, a little bit different in terms of the overall pacing of the cold open. This was written by Josh Patton, Allison Gates, and Streeter Seidel. We had James Austin Johnson coming in for the 6th time as Joe Biden. We keep doing the Trump Biden thing with James Austin Johnson. But really, this was centered around Ego Wodum as Ketanji Brown Jackson. Chloe Feynman was here. We had Kate McKinnon bringing back Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Kenan Thompson as Thurgood Marshall, Punky as Harriet Tubman, Chris Redd as Jackie Robinson. So, Sammy, what did you think of the cold open?
I have been kind of critical of the cold opens as of late, and I really, really enjoyed this one. As far as political cold opens go, I just thought, starting off with James Austin Johnson as Biden and then having him kind of take a step back and letting the other cast shine, I think that was a really good move on the show's part. Really cool to see Ego in a starring role. And I just thought it was like a sweet kind of tribute to this moment. I mean, we always talk about SNL as like kind of a time capsule of like what's going on in the world. And I think the way they went about doing that to honor this historic moment was both a nice tribute, but also I found to be very funny as well. So I was a fan of this one.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, what were your thoughts on the cold open that we saw tonight?
I would agree with Sammy in that, it was a nice tribute, but it honestly wasn't my favorite. I didn't laugh a lot throughout it. I just kind of just smiled and kind of went along with it. I thought it was good for what it was. The fact you have to touch on this week because of the timeliness of it. It made sense for why it had to happen during the episode, but it wasn't. And also, I don't know if I kind of drew out immediately when I saw James Austin Johnson at the top, if I'm being 100% honest. I've seen him so much this season that now I kind of just felt like, all right, another one. So yeah, it wasn't totally for me, but it gets a couple head nods throughout.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Nicole, what did you think of the cold open?
I agree with that. I think it is getting a bit predictable that every cold open we kind of know it's going to be JAJ in one of those two roles. And as amazing as he is in them, it's starting to feel like this structure it feels as much a part of the structure of the show as just the mere fact that we have a cold open starting the show. It's as much of a given as that. It feels like. With that said, this is definitely for me top half of the season cold opens. It felt really different and fresh, but also honoring things that we love and that are traditional that we've grown to love. So for example, having a beloved old character on, which was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Kate McKinnon's impression of her, but in tandem with a new justice and a new political impression. Ego Wodum, I thought, did an amazing job. I hope that's an impression that we get to see more, and it continues to grow out as we get to know Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson a little bit more. So I really liked it, and we were talking on Hollywood Dish this week about how we've had new cast members debut politicians in impressions, but we haven't had a lot of new politicians get debuted in impressions. We've had people debut them who've been impersonated before, but it just felt like a cast member who got to do someone who hasn't been done on the show before, and it just felt really fresh, and it felt symbolic of this kind of new era that we're going to be walking into in American politics, and it felt very hopeful for me. I liked it a lot more than I like typical cold open.
Interesting. Yeah, I did feel like there was more positive momentum to this one than some of the other ones that we've seen in the past few weeks. I really did. I really did feel that way. I do kind of, I guess I understand the direction they were going in. I understand the significance of the moment, certainly, and the impressions that they decided to bring out as a result of that. When JAJ as Biden was standing there and left, and then Ketanji Brown Jackson, played by Ego, was like, "Oh, I'm in the White House, and I want to think about all the historical people that have walked through the White House, my mind went to like historic White House staff and impressions and cabinet members and stuff like that. And I didn't realize the direction that they were going with this. So it actually took a turn for me in a way that I didn't expect. And that's partially maybe why I enjoyed it as much as I did, because I was sort of thinking, I was like, okay, are they going to bring out past presidential impressions, or like where are they going with this? And I think that that key element of the writing of the cold open sort of lended to not, us not seeing everything as it's going to happen, which I think is, by the way, how you can summarize how most people felt about the cold opens this season, is that everybody sort of feels like you could see exactly what's going to happen in all the cold opens. So that little twist for me, I think, made up for some of the, faults that you could potentially have with this. So good overall, I would say. Then we get Jake Gyllenhaal coming out for his monologue. So this was really fascinating to me because Jake Gyllenhaal hosted previously in 2007, was hosted in bar none what I think is the best season of Saturday Night Live, and his episode was no exception. There was a lot of recurring sketches that had there. There were some sneaky good sketches, and you saw last time that Jake was certainly capable of being a really great fun SNL host, and it was just really cool to see him reference back to his previous hosting gig. So Nicole, I want to start with you on this one, because for me, it was going to go in one of two ways. He was either going to reference his previous hosting experience or the whole Taylor Swift thing. And I think he steered completely clear of that. So what were your thoughts on that?
Oh, this was 100% the right direction. And I actually think that Jake Gyllenhaal taking the SNL stage and avoiding that entirely, it kind of gave everyone permission to just move on from it. It felt like, whereas last week, the elephant in the room was the Will Smith thing, and Gerard Carmichael literally had to talk about it. This week, I came into it with a similar expectation of the Taylor Swift thing will be that elephant in the room, and I'm so happy that he just didn't even address it, because by the end of the episode, I was like, what Taylor Swift thing? How crazy that I went into it thinking he has to talk about it, and then by the end of it, I was like, this guy is so much bigger than that. Like, Taylor and Jake are so much bigger than that, and this just this solidified that for me. So I was so happy that they didn't even talk about it. I loved this monologue. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. He's like one of my favorite actors in the world. I'm a little obsessed with him. And it just was so good when he really went back to his monologue from the first time he hosted. I got the chills, really. Like, how special is that of course, to go have so many years between your first and second appearances, and then to really make a callback to your first appearance like that. It was just so amazing and such great it's just so great for SNL fans to have that, to see that. And then Jake Gyllenhaal fans, of course, we were happy. And yeah, I was really happy that they didn't even talk about it. And this was so well done. I love when he sings. I think people forget that he's a good singer until he enters into a world like SNL or like the Mulaney Sack Lunch Bunch show that he did on Netflix, Sack Bunch Lunch, and then it's like, oh yeah, he really sings. He can sing. I think he sings more in comedy than anywhere else. He's done a little bit of like theater where he sings, but it's always fun to be reminded that he loves to sing and that he's a good singer.
Absolutely. I think, like, honestly, Anthony, I just felt like him going back to that 2007 monologue was really interesting as a choice, because we had put out a stat earlier today that he is only the 11th person to host for the second time after 15 years. So I thought it was cool because we actually had Jason Bateman, who hosted last year, who made a subtle reference to some things that he previously hosted. But it's always special for me when somebody does that meta turn and they talk about something that happened so many years in advance on SNL.
Definitely agree. A good callback's always fun. Like, that's kind of like, the basis of like, a pillar of comedy, like, is being able to like, bring something back that everybody has a little bit of nostalgia and like, has been keeping up with. As far as like, the full monologue, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the musical monologues. They don't always do it for me. So the monologue didn't land for me as far as like, being like one of the funnier moments of the night. But that said, you mentioned earlier, Jake Gyllenhaal is, when he shows up, he's down for whatever, like he's 100% committed. And it's really fun to set that standard from jump, which is, I'm going to refer back to my first monologue. I'm going to talk about this character that I played that I probably wouldn't have played now if given the opportunity. Like, all of that was really, really good for the moment. And then, him jumping into singing, while not my thing, again, just sets that standard of like, y'all, like, I'm here to have a good time tonight. I'm really like, ready to dive in. And I think kind of attests to what you said, which is that, like, you know, he feels like a cast member because it's like, what do you need me to do? I'm doing it tonight. And that's a really nice standard to hit at the very top of the show.
100%. Sammy, would love to get your thoughts on the monologue. I thought one really funny note that he mentioned that they, you know, somebody was playing George W. Bush at the time. Did not mention that it was Jason Sudeikis playing George W. Bush at the time, which was not a great impression.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, what did you think of the monologue?
Yeah, I actually just rewatched the 2007 episode tonight, like an hour before. So it was funny to see Sudeikis in that role. But no, I enjoyed it. The first half kind of harkened back to some of those monologues we got earlier in the season, where it was, you know, kind of a personal story from, you know, the host without any cast members. And if it just stick to that sort of approach, you know, I would have enjoyed it. I kind of like to hear his sort of anecdote about like his experience on Nightcrawler and like, you know, trying to do those Oscar-y roles. And, you know, you're really able to like see his personality, which I always enjoy out of a monologue, especially from a host who, you know, I've been like a fan of for so many years. So that was cool insight, you know, not like the funniest sort of thing, but yeah, I mean, that meta-ness of, you know, referencing old SNL, that's, you know, perfect for, you know, people like us who really, you know, follow and track that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the song was fun. I mean, I don't know. I'm very mixed on the song monologues. I feel like I tend to like them more than I don't, but I totally see why a lot of people aren't a huge fan of them because it's not, you know, the funniest thing. But, you know, we always talk about how SNL, you know, is like a party, you know, and that kind of energy, you know, going into that first commercial break, you know, kind of set the show off on a good track.
Yeah. I would agree. I was having a lot of fun with this. I thought Celine Dion was a fun choice that they went with, you know, generally beloved. So I felt like, yeah, it was fun for this. And I did wear something red for you, Jake Gyllenhaal, tonight. So unfortunately, it wasn't as relevant as it could have been. All right, let's get into our first sketch of the night. This is called Why'd You Like It? And it is hosted by Kenan Thompson with contestants played by Chloe Fineman, Chris Redd, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And this is a sketch that talks all about why people like things on Instagram and eventually why people follow different people. So this got into some raunchy stuff. It was fun. We got to see some of the writers featured in the stills. We'll get into that. So Anthony, let me start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on Why Do You Like It?
All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. When they came out, or like mid-commercial break, when they showed the set for it, and I was like, oh, great, a game show, I kind of internally groaned. Then the sketch started, and by the end of it, I was like, this low-key might be one of my favorite sketches I've seen in a minute. Like you said, it was raunchy, it was fun, it was honest, and it was something that felt so fresh and so different that it's like, oh, like this, it just felt so timely and so perfect. And everybody that was involved with it was just having such a great time. I know we mentioned earlier, you know, Chris Redd really had like a lot of great moments throughout. This kind of like, you know, set him up like for the rest of the entire show of like, oh, like I'm dunking it every time I get the ball. I really, really enjoyed this sketch a lot. I thought this one was solid, and I'll be shocked if it's not going viral next week.
Yeah, Nicole, you know who really got me in this sketch? Chloe Fineman. I thought she was fantastic. She was fantastic in this.
Yeah, and it also felt like a casting and a placement that was kind of not typical for her, especially this season. I'm really glad that she got that opportunity. I feel like Chloe this season has done a lot of one-off impressions or one-off characters, and so it's cool to see her be cast in a sketch like this where she's one of, you know, 3 contestants or whatever, and she just, every time she's in a sketch in any capacity, like I feel like none of us are ever like, oh, she didn't live up to it. Anything that she's put in, she does a great job. I really liked this one. It was very relatable, except for the fact that, and I guess this is my little PSA for anyone who I follow on Instagram, who follows me on Instagram. I am H-word right now on Instagram. I don't want to say it. I'm hacked. Yeah. There, I said it. So it's usually really relatable for me because the way that I use Instagram usually is like, when I scroll, I just click like on everything, and sometimes it's so absent-minded. And I feel like that was a type of Instagram user that they didn't quite tap into, the people who literally just click like on everything and they don't have these ulterior motives and like really deeply thought out
They
subconscious
aren't trying to
incentives.
raw dog in a Starbucks bathroom.
Exactly. Yes. I think there's a total other thing that like there could have been another joke onto it where people literally like things that they truly don't remember liking. Like when I see a friend like tonight when I like saw some friends at a birthday party, people will be like talking about their Instagram pictures from 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I did click like on that, but I just wasn't thinking about it. So I think that there was like one more dimension of it. It felt like everyone here had these really specific intentions, and I think that they could have had a little bit more fun with talking about people who will click things on Instagram and not even like internalize the fact that they're doing anything on social media. But maybe that's my lesson learned because I'm so like half-ass on Instagram that I get hacked. So maybe most people should not act like I act on Instagram or else they'll get hacked.
But that's true. Yeah, I mean, big props to some of the stills, like I said, that we had in this sketch. We had Rosebud Baker, who was in one of the stills throughout this. And then we had film unit producer Adriana Perez was playing the first woman. And I guess she appeared again later on in this sketch. So took some of the stills from her Instagram page. So yeah, this was really, this was interesting to me. Sammy, do you have any experience with the Why Do You Like It concept?
Before you even asked before you asked that question, I was going to bring up an anecdote. Literally today, with me and my girlfriend, she'll like, I'll be on like Instagram or on the couch, and just like a random girl's like story shows up, and she'll always just be like,
"Who's that?
Who is that?" And like half the time, it's either a celebrity or someone I went to high school with, and there's no ulterior motive or anything. But because of that, this sketch like really hit for me. It's like incredibly relatable. Just, you know, when you go back and look at old sketches, you know, this is a very 2022 concept, you know, of like kind of where we are in society and like sort of, you know, social norms with your significant other and everything like that. So I thought it was very funny. You know, great performances by the cast, and this is definitely one of Jake Gyllenhaal's kind of best moments of the night for me was him in this sketch. So I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, me too. I thought this was pretty good. Okay, yeah, let's head on to Hgtv, and we saw Jake and Mikey as the Dream Home cousins. Then we had a married couple from James Austin Johnson and Heidi Gardner were together, and JJ playing a wonderful character that I can't wait to talk about this. Loved James Austin Johnson in this sketch. Kate comes in as Mother B, somebody who we've seen her play many times, and not literally Mother B, but a version of Mother B. And yeah, this takes quite the turn when they're designing their dream home, but Mother B keeps getting involved to change all the designs. So, Sammy, let me start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on Hgtv?
Yeah, this one was fun. The second I do see Kate McKinnon in like the old lady makeup, I'm like, all right, I kind of feel like I know where this is going to go. Like, I kind of, wish another cast member could maybe be in this role, but, she does it well. I thought this was a very nice opportunity to kind of see JJ, not doing an impression, kind of like what you alluded to, John. He just plays this like very like milk toast sort of non-confrontational son to Kate McKinnon's character, and
he's a cuck.
He's a cuck. Yeah, you had the perfect word for it, but no, I don't know. I thought something about the sketch that made this even funnier to me, and I've noticed this a lot recently with the show, is the graphics team at SNL just kills it. Like seeing the visuals of what is it called? The wisecrackers, those like little statues of the ducks, kind of looking like Howard the Duck, like in the yoga studio mock-up. Like that was very funny. I don't know. I just thought this was a very fun concept, and when it ends with Kate being like, "Hit her," like that got like a really good laugh out of me. So yeah, this one was a fun pre-tape for sure.
Oh man, this was something. The lines in this, Nicole, were just wild. I'll just throw one out there. I don't have the sound clips. That's for the Monday show, but I'll just say, Kate McKinnon saying, "I think this skinny mini opened her legs and took my son." Just got me like I was dying.
Yeah. A lot of good lines, a lot of like really good one-liners in this episode, like all across the board. I feel like this is the type of episode I'm gonna have to rewatch just to catch those like really good quips. I liked this. It also came on the heels of some content that I've been consuming that really like reminded me of this. And one is Mikey Day's Netflix show, Is It Cake? I was watching that last night. And so this was giving me kind of that similar vibe. I don't know if anyone else has been watching it, but it's really good. It's such a comfort show. And it did have the similar energy of like a just like a game show or a reality show, hybrid, that sort of that energy. And also I was watching Crazy Stupid Love today because I searched Love and Other Drugs, which is one of my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal movies. And then in the suggested, it came up Crazy Stupid Love. And I was like, okay, that's really my favorite romantic comedy. So I watched all of that today in the afternoon. And like Steve Carell's character is also like a cuck character. And so it was also very much giving that energy. So this just basically was just, I was very stimulated by all this other content that I have consumed in the last 22 hours that reminded me of it. And so I enjoyed it a lot. It was funny. It felt like a different beat that SNL hasn't tapped into as much, of this like, we're cousins, but we're not brothers. Haha. It's like it's like a stupid joke, but it worked and it was different. You know, it was so silly and dumb, but I just enjoyed it. I also liked, I think with timing, we talk a lot, especially on the hot take shows, when we're like, time is an interesting concept and we're right here, right after the show. And it felt like the type of sketch that just kept going on and on and on and on. And we're like, okay, when does it end? When does it end? But this sketch, more than most sketches that feel like that, it felt like that was kind of the joke. It was like, just when you think it's over, nope, there's another thing. There's another thing. And that doesn't always work. But in this case, I think that it worked better than it does usually. And I was like, okay, I like that I never know when it's going to end. They're constantly adding on to it. So I was happy. I liked it.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like this was the one sketch, Anthony, where I sort of feel that the opposite of my hot take for the night, where I felt like the writing elevated more than the host in this one. Like Jake and Mikey were fine. They were okay. But I really felt like the writing here for James Austin Johnson, Heidi Gardner, and Kate McKinnon's characters, the interaction between the three was so hilarious. Like I could watch a sitcom of those three characters together in different situations.
For sure. And I think that it kind of like, alludes to what everybody's been saying throughout, right? It's like, these are the characters that these actors play very, very well. It's like, one that they can reach into that toolbox and access very quickly. So it's very turnkey for all of them. Honestly, you saying that James Austin Johnson's thing is like, playing the cut, it didn't land until you said it. Like, it makes a lot of sense. But like everybody kind of has one of those. And when you write with that in mind, yeah, you're bringing out the best possible situation because you're basically just drawing up a play based off of what everybody's capable of doing. So yeah, it wasn't my all-time favorite sketch of the night, but like you said, it utilizes everybody in like the best way possible, so you're going to get the best possible outcome. One note that I did have though, the props department, I don't know what they did to make that cat. That was funny. Like that was really, really funny. Like every time the cat popped up, I couldn't stop looking at it. So yeah, big props to whoever puts it. Was it 27-year-old cat?
I think so.
Yeah,
yes,
I was like, that definitely needs a shout out.
Oh man, so good. Yeah, I can't wait to dive deep into this one again. Okay, so then we have coming up next our Cabaret song. This was an Allison Gates and Celeste Yim piece with Mikey Day introducing the Singers 4 with Jake Gyllenhaal, Kate McKinnon, Cecily Strong, and Bowen Yang. And yeah, they're singing about their little victories. And as they sing, and that's my thing for me, and that's enough for me when they go on. So we've seen some of these Broadway style things, especially with Cecily and Bowen many times before, but this time we introduced Jake Gyllenhaal to this, to the bit, and I really felt like he added a flavor to this that I haven't seen before with Cecily and Bowen. So Nicole, let me start with you on this one. What did you feel about Cabaret song?
Oh, I loved it. And there's such a difference. I think we talk a lot about how this era, if it can be defined by anything, it probably is musical theater nerds, and we get a lot of that. And I think it has a very different feel when the host is also a musical theater nerd. Sometimes they insert hosts who aren't really, and they're just, this is the sketch that they have this week that they want to push through. And Jake Gyllenhaal, for all that he comes across as, whether it's this sort of like asshole heartthrob or this serious, intense actor, like all these things that you could characterize him as, he's actually like a total musical theater nerd. Like if you really look into who he is and what he's done and what he cares about, like that is him. And so he was in his element here. And it's fun when they have these types of sketches and they put people into it, hosts into it, who are as enthusiastic as Cecily and Bowen are about the subject material. And so it was just fun. And also it's fun to combine musical theater with that like hyper relatability stuff of just celebrating these small wins. The ones I wrote down where I finished an entire chapstick without losing it. I've never done that myself. Like I'm like huge props. Like I could never. Never got COVID is like a random flex that I also have never gotten COVID, but I don't want to say that out loud because I feel like now that I say it, I'm gonna get it. But I haven't gotten it, and it's starting to feel, like an like a little thing. And then I saw Hamilton before it was cool. I also saw Hamilton before it was cool. So all these little things, they were like so specific, and I think they whipped out like throughout the whole sketch probably like 15 or 18 little quips, and between all of them, I think we can all relate extremely specifically to at least 3 or 4 of them. So it's just that kind of thing. Like there's something for everybody here, even if you're not a musical theater head.
100%. Yeah. And I'm not per se. Like I've always complained about some of these style of sketches that we get there, and if there is a purpose here. But I think that the most impressive thing for me is that this went off without a hitch. Like they were just on time for everything. Doing this live is really difficult. So Anthony, what were your thoughts on Cabaret Song?
I thought it was fine. I'm realizing, like, watching, like, this whole season, the singing sketches don't always do it for me. And we've had a couple of those this season. I will say this one was better than a lot of the previous ones. I thought, Bowen had some good one-liners, and Jake Gyllenhaal, again, it's like he showed up, like, ready to play and, like, ready to have a good time. So he really, like, fit in seamlessly. And actually thinking back to it, it is, like, really dope that they got through the entire thing without, like, any hiccups. But yeah, I thought it was cool for what it was. Not one of my favorite things ever, but everybody was clicking, so it was cool for that, for the chemistry, I guess.
For sure. The camaraderie was strong in the Cabaret sketch. Sammy, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I kind of am somewhere in between Nicole and Anthony on this one. Like a lot of these, especially with Cecily, some of the musical theater sketches in the past, sometimes I struggle even to like kind of pay attention to. But this one, it was just like a lot of kind of fast-paced one-liners that, similar to what Nicole said before, like I'm gonna have to go back and like really dig into those. The one that comes to mind though is the Jake Gyllenhaal bit where he's talking about something to do with like going to the movies, but like, telling his wife he's going somewhere else, and he ends up going to a movie, and then he comes home and she asks like how that thing was, and he just doesn't say that he went to a movie. Not something that's ever happened to me.
Do you have any experience with this, Sammy?
I don't know. I honestly might, but I'm nothing like
can't get you to say all your
not exactly T to T, but I'm sure something like that has happened before. But yeah, I don't know. I think the performances for me really elevated the concept. I thought they all, just killed it. A lot of energy. Something that I found interesting, and that I saw other people on Twitter felt the same, was when they started the sketch, when Mikey was introducing it, the way it was being set up, I thought it was going to be an Angelos sketch from Aristotle. I know this might be, going to set Twitter on fire again, but I don't know. It's interesting that I wasn't the only one that thought that, but I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, this one was better than I was anticipating when it started, for sure.
Say for me?
For sure. Okay, let's go on to Spring Flowers. This was a Ken Sublette, Colin Jost, Allison Gates, Celeste Yim sketch where Kenan Thompson is watering the flowers, and very similar to it's a different sketch, but very similar in terms of tone to kind of what we saw in his 2007 episode where Jake actually was playing some meatballs. This time we have Jake Flower Hall Sarah, Cecily, and Chris all as flowers. Bowen comes in as the humping bee. Shout out to our main man, John Belushi, of course, and the original bees. Always fun seeing bees on Saturday Night Live. Kyle Mooney's here as a weed, I guess, and a dog there to pee on all of them. So, Anthony, lots of stuff happening here in Spring Flowers. What were your thoughts on it?
Recurring thing I'm realizing whenever they start singing, I'm just like, oh, why? So like when it initially kind of kicked off, I was like, kind of like not feeling this. I don't know where this is going. And again, like I said, like the very top, Bowen showed up and I was like, all right, I'm here. Like, let's roll. Like, this is fun. Everything he did throughout the top is like, the bee, pulling the pollen, talking about the goo that comes out of his butt and that people eat it. I'm like, oh, like he's crushing it. Like the man does not miss. So I really, really enjoyed that. The weed bit wasn't so much for me. And like, I felt like it didn't, I feel like it peaked with the bee moment. But I did love that Chris got like, a bunch of moments in there to like, just kind of like, just drop his bomb, like, give his like, cheeky smile right afterwards. For those two reasons, I really enjoyed it. But as a whole, it wasn't my favorite sketch.
For sure. Yeah. Chris in this, like it's an example that we're talking about him just continuing to dominate the season when you see that they're giving him the line that's going to, change the perspective on everything. And they hit him last because they know that he's the one that's like, oh yeah, I want the pee on me. Okay. Sammy, what did you think of Spring Flowers?
When's it gonna be my turn? That was
exactly
amazing. Amazing. That's exactly like what I was referring to during my headline, my hot take for the show. Yeah, I really like this. Maybe, I don't know. I love to see how the show is able to bring some of this stuff to life. Like, the actual like production that went into this between like Bowen and the green screen, which I don't know if you guys have like picked up on this, but Bowen Yang is like the green screen king of SNL. Like he is throughout the season had so many ridiculous characters. We must stan him for that. But no, I don't know. I really enjoyed I really liked seeing like just how kind of like how many different ways they could like kind of manipulate, what is going on in like the life of these flowers. I don't know, Kyle popping in there. I always get to see Kyle as a weed, just trying to what was he asking for? He was just trying to
get involved in a sketch.
Yeah. Or no. With like Sarah, something like choke. He's trying to choke her. I don't know. That was just like very weird and bizarre to me. But yeah, I don't know. This was just very, very stupid. And I thought was pretty funny, even though it was very stupid.
Yeah, and I love stupid. I think stupid on SNL always works for me. So, Nicole, what did you think of Spring Flowers?
I liked it too, and it goes with my headline that there was a lot of fusion, and it seems like not just with cast members who aren't typically paired together, but also writing teams. So I know that Celestium and Allison Gates work together a lot, and I like that it was them and Colin Jost. Like that trio, I feel like is really interesting to me, and so I could tell now that we're talking about who was writing these. It just feels like all these different dynamics this week that everything felt so refreshing, like like a spring flower. Everything felt kind of different and interesting, and so I really, really liked this one. Chris in this role, even before he said the line that he also said in the poop mail-in testing sketch, I was like, this is the same character that he played in the season premiere in that poop mail-in testing sketch with Dismukes and Sarah when he played the mailman. And I was like, it's the same guy. And then he did the line, I don't mind. And it must have been a callback to that sketch because he also said, I don't mind.
I got this one.
I don't mind.
Exactly. So I was like, I like when these things feel kind of recurring. Like it's the same character, but obviously in an entirely different situation and, a different form of life. That was a human. This is a flower. So yeah, it's cool to see that Chris Redd is really, he's doing all these huge undertakings, these big roles, and then he's also getting a lot of the punchlines. So it's like he's just MVP consistently all the time, and it's really cool to see. Another thing, I thought the timing of this again feels like an ode to the writing trio, three writers who I always love a lot of things that these three writers are doing, whether it's together or separate. It's just a cool team, and I liked the timing that. It felt like the way that Bowen's character was essentially like, jerking off on their heads the way you could put it into flower terms. It felt like that, when you say that out loud, it feels like that would be like the end of the sketch or the big reveal of he's doing something this whole time. And then at the end, everyone says, oh, that's what it is. Haha. And it was revealed in the first, like 25 seconds of the sketch. And I thought that timing was very smart, because in a lot of other sketches, that exact thing would have been the punchline that was waiting and waiting. And it just shows how dynamic the sketch was, that what could have been the punchline was actually like the premise. And so it was cool. It felt very smart for such a stupid sketch. It was really smart.
I definitely want to debate this more throughout the week, especially on the roundtable on Monday, because I sort of wonder if the sketch would have been better for me personally if that continued to be the punchline, because I think I was having the most fun with Bowen as the bee. I felt like it was just weird and awkward and very interesting. And, I will just say, must be, if Bowen is a longtime fan of SNL, for him to be in a bee costume in a sketch, that is actually like very iconic. So that is a bucket list moment for Bowen for sure. Okay. Let's move on to our next sketch. And obviously, we spoke about meatballs and we had that earlier in the season with Sarah. And then this is really another Sarah showcase here, where we had Sarah as Chucky, who was once had an ancient voodoo curse and became the doll. And we start off the sketch in a bathroom with Melissa Villaseñor, Chloe Fineman, and Ego Wodem, as they're all talking about Janet, only for Chucky to try and kill them. We later see Jake Gyllenhaal as the HR representative and Aidy Bryant as Janet, the note taker, with what was she eating, Nicole? I don't remember.
What was she eating? Tuna. Oh, yes, tuna.
Yes. Yeah. What'd you think of this?
I liked it. It felt kind of like the spiritual sister to the bathroom sketch in the Kieran Culkin episode. It felt similar in terms of not just the background, but also kind of the tone. It was this extremely slice of life backdrop, and then it just became kind of absurdist very quickly. So it immediately brought me right back there, and I liked it. I feel like the whole Chucky thing has been kind of hinted at over the season, whether in the show or like cast members have kind of referenced it. There was a reference to it in the Sex and the City reboot, and I know a lot of cast members were talking about it on social media and referencing it a little bit. So it feels like this was always going to happen, and I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal was a great host, a great episode to do this in, even though he had kind of the most like straight character in the whole sketch. Like he didn't really make it any more absurd than it was without him. But I like that it was in his episode, because he is kind of an absurdist guy. And I liked it. Like a great kind of a predictable but also effective and fun showcase for Sarah.
For sure. Anthony, what were your thoughts on the Chucky pre-tape that we saw tonight?
I feel like I have to go against the chat. I didn't love it. It was very Sarah Squirm, which like I'm happy to she has a place in the show and that people like her stuff is resonating with people. But it starting the top of the sketch, I didn't know where it was going. Chucky pops out and I'm just like, all right, like this is not where I thought we were going at all. And it kind of just continued going that way. Like maybe I was just feeling like I was out the loop. And I just wasn't like enjoying it for that reason. But yeah, it was very surreal. It felt like an idea that somebody came up with, and it was like, oh, like we're really going to do this thing. And props for the fact like they wouldn't take like the opportunity on Sarah. I assume she wrote this one because it felt so much like her. Okay. So absolutely dope for that, but it didn't resonate with me personally. I'm glad that it did with other folks though.
Yeah, it seems like mostly high regarded in our chat for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, no, I love the conflicting opinion as well. Things work differently for different people. So Sammy, where are you on the Chucky pre-tape?
Yeah, I really wanted to love this one because I really enjoyed the meatball sketch a few weeks ago. And, when Sarah joined the show, like going back and watching a lot of her older stuff, I was like, all right, like I really like this kind of gross out humor. But yeah, I don't really know what it was about it for me. I guess I just kind of was lost in like what exactly the game of the sketch was. And like by the time we got to the HR meeting, the way it kind of ends with the dynamite kind of was, I don't know, just not the best kind of button or punchline to the whole thing. So I feel like I'm gonna want to I want to go back and rewatch this one. I'm very happy to see Sarah get these kind of weirder stuff on the show. And I thought, the cut to the commercial of seeing like how the production team is able to put this on is really cool. But as far as like highlights of the night, this wasn't one of them for me.
Yeah, I mean, this sketch was okay. Like, I did enjoy it. I felt like 80 I was very underrated in this sketch, her coming out as Janet, and I felt like her lines were really funny to me. But it is an example of what we sometimes talk about on the podcast throughout the weeks, beyond just the hot take show, which is that, when you give a newer cast member a platform and some runway to make these sketches, we are generally somewhat less critical. We're not going to be as hard on them because we haven't seen these things so many times. So, in the case of JJ, when he was first coming out with his impressions at the beginning of the season, I mean, everybody was going nuts over them. I think the same thing with Sarah. I think, not every single thing that Sarah is going to do is going to absolutely crush. But when you give her some runway on the show, I think it's really fun. So, I mean, it goes in line with what we're saying about, giving some newer cast members some more room to play with on the show. And I think that they did that tonight. So that was a really good feeling. Okay. Let's talk about we'll do some brief touching on the music. We'll talk about Camila Cabello, who was there and performed a couple songs tonight. Jake Gyllenhaal came out wearing a Ramona and Gloria shirt, which is they're his nieces, from my understanding, and which is very cute. We also saw an appearance from the Smith family, the first appearance from anybody in the Smith family, in the second song that we got tonight, a Willow Smith appearance with Camila Cabello. So, Nicole, do you want to touch on this?
It was really interesting timing. I will say that. I mean, I'm not trying to spew any conspiracy theories or anything, but I think that Willow Smith was always going to be scheduled to be in this performance, regardless of whether her father slapped anybody last week, 2 weeks ago. So it's just interesting timing. Like it feels like a good coincidence, and I'm glad that we're kind of over the slap talk, but it's also kind of like a last little reminiscing thing of, oh, that's funny. That's cool. But yeah, I mean, good performances. Not much to add to that, but they were good.
Yeah, I did tweet out me personally that
Yes.
Jake, that Camila Cabello and Willow Smith's song slaps. So that is getting some runway on Twitter right now.
Good job.
Anthony, anything about Camila Cabello?
Not much to add. I like some of her songs. I thought she, did like a solid performance. Two solid performances. But similarly, when Willow popped up, there was like that moment of like, wait, is that? Oh, that's interesting. We're not going to say anything, or like nothing is going to come from this, but cool. Like just like a quick moment of like something interesting is happening on live TV, and we're not going to discuss the elephant in the room. Yeah, it was like a funny like inside chuckle moment that I wasn't expecting during the show today.
Yeah. So, Sammy, let me ask you, if you could pick them not talking about the Taylor Swift scarf thing or them not talking about the slap, what resonated with you more tonight seeing Willow Smith on the show?
Well, but they did talk about the slap. They talked about it in the weekend update piece. So, yeah, I mean, as far as that, I mean, yeah, I think that was what was interesting to me was the fact that, she's like backstage and they're making these jokes. Like, clear, I don't know. I wonder like what that's like for, in that situation. But I don't know. I thought her performance was good. I've liked a lot of her music, but no, crazy takes from the sound on the music.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Taylor Swift does have a song called Willow. So it all comes together. Okay, let's talk about what we Secret Swiftie. Let's talk about what we saw on Weekend Update tonight, and cut from Weekend Update. Very unfortunately, I mean, I heard that this was going to be happening tonight. I was very excited to see it, so I hope it does come up on the dress rehearsal version we're going to get, which was an update debut for John Higgins with Andrew Dismukes. Apparently, they came out together during dress rehearsal. That would have been very fun to see, but instead, we did get some jokes plus 80 Bryant and Bowen Yang coming out for the second time as the trend forecasters that was previously in the Willem Dafoe episode. And we got to learn what was in and what was out. So, Sammy, I'll send it right back to you. Thoughts on Weekend Update tonight?
In the trend forecasters, don't have an out for that bit, but no, solid Weekend Update. Yeah, as the jokes were going, with no guest or correspondent, I was like, oh, is this gonna be another, oops, all jokes weekend update. But no, it was. I love to see the trend forecasters back. We're going back to kind of what Nicole was saying before about like these combination of different generations sort of cast members. And when this first these characters showed up in the Willem Dafoe episode, I'm like, oh wow, this is like electric. Like seeing like this chemistry between Adie and Bowen is so fun. Like I'm pretty sure she's going on Lost Culturistas, right, Nicole? And yeah, so she was great on that. And so it's cool to see them, bring that to the update desk again. And, this is like a fun character because there's just so many kind of different examples of these kind of jokes that you can make. And, for me, it still felt really fresh. And then, yeah, as I alluded to before, we've been talking about the slap for what feels like years at this point, but I don't know. I did think the joke about, the punishment being, Will Smith should host the Oscars. I thought that was a very funny joke, even though I feel like I've seen that also on Twitter recently. But no, solid weekend update.
Yeah, and it's a great idea, by the way. He definitely should. So, Anthony, what were your thoughts on the trend forecasters as we got to see Adie and Bowen again?
Go to bed, bitch.
I like the trend forecasters a lot. I similarly, my wife is a huge fan of Las Culturistas, and it feels so Bowen Yang, and it feels so perfect for Adie Bryant that when you get to see like them like collaborating doing this together, it's fun and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like it kind of lands and then like it doesn't need to do it and like you move on from it. I really enjoyed that sketch a lot. Similar to what Sammy said. I thought that was one of the better takes that we could possibly be giving on the slap almost 2 weeks later. Was like, to kind of like make light of it and kind of turn it around as like, Will Smith didn't actually lose in the situation. And one of my favorite jokes from it also was when they pulled up the picture of Mitch McConnell, and before they actually got into like the main joke, the setup for it was that he was watching the in memoriam section from the Oscars with a huge smile on his face. That was great. So yeah, I thought it was great overall, but not a trend forecasters. They cool with me.
Yeah, they're cool with me too. And Nicole, I mean, I just love it when they put their heads together. I just find that so funny because like they just like they're talking the entire time side to side, and I like the physical comedy that they brought to this.
Yes, I'm glad that every panelist has talked about Las Culturistas because this particular segment is so Las Culturistas core. It's basically just talking about trends and culture, what's in, what's out, what we're into. This is Las Culturistas in essence, and it's so much fun to have Adie and Bowen do that together. I love it. It's just the energy is amazing. It's a great also. I like that this segment is a now recurring weekend update segment because it fits so well in update because it's some version of update. In another world, like our weekend update anchors would just be doing what's in, what's out, like where I feel like at least the Colin Jost, a little bit Che too, but the signature of this era is kind of the so-and-so photo seen here, XYZ, ABC, da-da-da. That's like their thing, particularly Colin's thing. And so it's just fun to see the trend, the people. It's so much fun and it's perfect. And Adie and Bowen are so perfect together. I loved it. I thought that there was kind of a lot of material heading into update this week, a lot going on in the news and in pop culture. And I think they did a good job of tackling a lot of things and weaving them in. So, for example, comparing Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation to J-Lo and Ben was perfect. It was a great way to talk about two very equally, arguably important stories for our time. You could debate that, I think. So it felt like a very efficient update. They talked about a lot. And the last thing I'll say is I think it's a very good sign for the host when update is shorter, when we only have one guest or one, set of guests, because it means that there are a lot of sketches where it's the host typically is in a lot of the sketches, if not all of the sketches outside of update. And so for them to cut an update segment and just have one rather than two or three, they don't do that often. And to me, that says that the host was really good in a lot of sketches and they didn't want to cut sketches, because most sketches, if the host isn't that good, like you can save it for next week or save it for the future. So for me, that's just a good sign that Jake was killing everything that he was in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about what we saw after Weekend Update. And we got this sketch called Tombstone. And this was written by Colin Jost, Rosebud Baker, Please Don't Destroy, and Michael Che. So a lot of people collaborated on this one. And it was basically talking about the 1993 Tombstone film with Val Kilmer in it. And instead we had Jake Gyllenhaal as a sicker Doc Holliday. So Sammy, let me get your thoughts on Tombstone.
Huh. I don't really know how I feel about Tombstone. Maybe it's because I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. I mean, this goes back to like a lot of the themes of this episode, like kind of, really dumb, silly, toilet humor kind of sketch. You know, I mean, I think Jake Gyllenhaal had like a very good performance in this. I was definitely laughing. I don't remember any particular like lines or one. I mean, there is one line from Keenan that I have written down here where Chloe Feynman, I guess is his white daughter. He has like a line saying like, yeah, you were having sex with my white daughter. Like, I don't know. That was funny, I guess. Yeah, don't really have like a ton of concrete takes on this one. It was interesting that this was like, how they framed it too, right? Like they framed it with like Cecily, having this show like lights, camera, achoo. I don't know. Everything very bizarre. I'm still kind of wrangling with this one, so I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say about it.
For sure. Anthony, let me start with you, or let me head over to you. What is your thought on Tombstone?
Similarly, Tombstone felt like a deep cut, and I'm like, that's a little bit far back where like I hadn't seen it, and it's like if you haven't, I guess because like Sammy, you felt the same way. It just doesn't land the same. So yeah, it's like you don't get the reference, so you don't feel like you're fully into the joke. And on top of it, the rest of the jokes within it that I thought like, were made for me as like a non-viewer of Tombstone still didn't quite do it. Positive takeaway, again, Jake Gyllenhaal was down for whatever tonight and definitely like, he gave him the best performance possible. But it wasn't for me because it felt like it was for somebody that's seen Tombstone.
Interesting. Okay. Nicole, have you seen Tombstone and did this work for you?
Can't say that I've seen Tombstone, and I certainly agree. I think it's one, the fact that it's, if you haven't seen it, you're not totally getting it, but also it's not, there's some sketches where they do such a great job of, even if you haven't seen it, you're laughing. But this one, I think it blended in with so many other sketches that have a similar backdrop or similar like feel and vibe and old timey essence to them. So combined with that, the fact that I didn't get the reference and I was just reminded of so many similar on the surface sketches, it was just very forgettable to me. With that said, the performances were solid. I think if it were any other host, it probably would have been cut. Jake Gyllenhaal just is really good at selling anything. So it was good. Yeah, I think any other host, this might have been cut and we would have gotten a second update segment.
Interesting. Okay. So I think this might be my hottest take of the night because I think the sketch was okay, but I was trying to figure out, like I said earlier in the podcast, what or who Jake Gyllenhaal reminded me of. I certainly felt like he could have been an SNL cast member. I have to tell you, I was watching this, and I just got Will Ferrell vibes from Jake Gyllenhaal. And I just go back and watch it. I'm telling you, in the performances, and go back and watch some of Will Ferrell's sketches on Saturday Night Live. I really felt like in this sketch, and even in another sketch that's about to come, I was like, oh wow, I could see the like the tone of the way he's saying the lines and stuff like that. And I sort of like, Will Ferrell always won me over with performances in very poorly written sketches. And I sort of felt like that's what this was. And I don't know if this is crazy, and chat, you can kill me if I'm wrong, but I just really felt like that's what I was seeing here. And maybe somebody we'll see the same thing if they go back and watch this. So
that's a wild take, John. That's a wild take.
I know. That's what we're here for. Just staying up late past 2 a.m. to talk about.
Can I add something, John, to this conversation about this very memorable sketch about the 90s movie Tombstone? I know our friend Bill Kenny is telling us all to watch it, and it's been on my list forever. But I have like a request to SNL as a big movie head. Like, can we just start like making more sketches that are referencing movies that came out in like this century? Like that's all I'm asking. It's just like, I feel like a lot of times it's just like these really, it's not like the 90s is like, hey, I was born in the 90s. It's not like that old of a movie, but I don't know. If we're, there's a lot of movies and TV shows that we can be, parroting that are, the references are more, we're closer to. I know that's not like going to make or break a sketch, but that's just a request I have to anyone watching.
Okay, that is fair. I also want to say that I thought it was an interesting choice of the writers to put Keenan in the sketch, and I understand with some of the lines why they did that, versus having Keenan anchor the sketch, whereas they had Cecily play that role this time. Like it could have been a Reese DeWatt situation where he went back in time and saw something about Tombstone. So I thought it was an interesting choice in the way that they spun this. Okay, let's talk about this one called Couples Counselor, and this was really interesting to me because this was a sketch that was anchored by Punky Johnson, Jake Gyllenhaal, and obviously Melissa Villaseñor, who we don't get to see a lot on the show. They come in as a couple. And, Ego Wodum also in this as well. And I think that the reason why we got all these, cast members that we don't see as much is because this sketch was written by 3 new writers. This was written by Ben Silva, Rosebud Baker, and Alex English. All, that trio, which is like, obviously, we don't get to see these sketches very often. So I thought this was a really fun jumping off point for this sketch to, read that and find that out. And obviously Punky having a major role here. So Anthony, can I head over to you for this one? Tell me what you thought of Couples Counselor.
For sure. I like that Punky got some more screen time. I'm a huge Punky Johnson fan, especially after seeing her in HBO Max show that came out, Love Life, season 2. She was fantastic in it. So I just want her to get more opportunities. But it wasn't my favorite sketch. I don't know what didn't land for me. Maybe it was just like the back and forth text situation, like having you eventually get the moment of Jake Gyllenhaal reading it out and doing it with full voice, everything, which was fun. But overall it didn't do it for me. I didn't find it to be one of the funnier moments of the night. I'm sorry. I wanted it to be everything because I love Punky and because I want to see her get more, but it wasn't my favorite sketch.
Okay, that's totally fair. But I mean, Nicole, a Punky Johnson showcase. I mean, this is something we've been asking for.
Oh, we have so been asking for it. I was so happy. I'm honestly, my main takeaway, I keep on circling back to it, is the way that this episode gave so many people showcases. Of course, not Aristotle, unfortunately, but it just feels like almost everyone had so much time and was in so many different things and interacting with people in different formations than they usually do. And all the dynamics, it just felt like it's like when the word dynamic as a noun and an adjective come together. It was such a dynamic show with so many different types of dynamics coming in. I hope that makes sense. I don't usually think of those words so together, but that was this episode. And I really liked this sketch. I thought that it was almost startling, honestly, to see Punky anchoring in a lead role and then Melissa also in a lead role. It was like we barely see either of them in that case. So to have both of them in that, it was just like, wow, this is cool. It's different. And I thought it was great. I really did. I wasn't laughing out loud on the floor or anything. Like, I think I had bigger laughs at different points in the night, but it was a really solid sketch and I'm happy that it made it to air. I think in another episode, it could have easily been cut, and Jake Gyllenhaal just really sold his performance. Like, that's a theme I keep coming back to, is like the structure of this episode would have been very different if Jake Gyllenhaal were not such a talented, committed comedic force on the show tonight. Like, we would have gotten a very, very different episode, maybe even 3 update segments. Like, there were so many variables that were really contingent on whether Jake sold things. And there were so many sketches that I truly don't think would have made the cut with any other host.
Yeah, I agree with this. And, I probably will save this story for the roundtable because it makes more sense to do this there. But I actually did have a very similar experience, not as a couples counseling situation, but I did have a very similar experience once riding a Greyhound bus from Montreal to Florida, where I ended up switching buses and sitting next to somebody who was in this Punky Johnson role and kept getting on the phone and saying very similar lines. And I will tell that story on Monday. So stay tuned for that. But Sammy, what did you think of Couples Counselor?
I can't wait to hear more of that story, John, on Monday. Yeah, I really enjoyed this sketch. Yeah, similar to everybody on the panel. Great to see Punky Johnson have like a role with, you know, some meat on the bone and really kind of anchor the entire thing. I think like another reason why this sketch really stood out to me is because, you know, looking back on this entire episode and all the sketches we've talked about, you know, I feel like we always talk about those kind of slice of life sketches. And, you know, not that this is necessarily, you know, a situation I've found myself in. I guess, John, you have. But,
Sort
you
of.
know, this is like when you look at all the other sketches, you know, that were in the show tonight, this is the one that, you know, is dealing with like real relationships and like, you know, maybe not like real people, but, you know, the characters you encounter in life, you know, versus like, you know, talking flowers or, you know, Chucky dolls or anything like that. So for me, I think that's why, you know, this one worked a lot for me. It's, you know, it was a small cast, like not too many characters, you know, just kind of playing out a scene and kind of seeing where it goes. So yeah, I was a fan of this one.
Yeah, I would agree. And I always vouch for smaller sketches. I always think those work better. So that definitely elevates this for me. I like the Punky line. This is my work wig. I thought that was great. So yeah, there are little things in here. And I think we'll dive into it more on Monday. Okay, let's wrap up the night with Truck Stop CD. And yeah, I was watching this one. Obviously, you know, we have Ego and Kyle and 80 in the truck stop, Jake and Cecily and Kyle in the car. And I was just waiting for, is it too much to ask for Clancy T. Backlerat and Jackie Snad to get into the car for this one? That's what I was waiting for. So I really got those vibes from Truck Stop CD. So chat panel, let's wrap up the night and talk about this last sketch. Sammy, what did you think of it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, John, because earlier when you were alluding to like, you know, there's a cast member that Jake Gyllenhaal reminded me of. I thought you were talking about this sketch, and I thought you were talking about your guy Will Forte, which I definitely got, some vibes to that sketch. Yeah, I don't know. This is I thought it was going back to the theme of the night, just kind of dumb. Yeah, a lot of the themes tonight are just like very kind of dumb, silly sketches and a lot of musical sketches, like a lot of song sketches. So, you know, as far as like the whole landscape of the show, I mean, you know, not the best, not the worst. I thought the Ghost Trucker song was funny. Again, like going back to like, I like to highlight a lot of the production aspects, the way that they kind of change the lighting and make it look all, you know, spooky and everything. I don't know. Thought that was a nice touch. And I don't know. I think AD kind of excels in these kind of like infomercial roles. We've seen her do it a lot. But I don't know. She, you know, we didn't see a lot of AD tonight. And, you know, this for me maybe was my favorite use of her. So, you know, for a 10-1 sketch, you know, it was, you know, it was good. Not amazing.
Yeah, and I'll say just to continue, like I definitely, you know, there's has been comparisons in the past between Forte and Farrell, but I think in this particular case where I see Jake as more of a Will Ferrell type in this episode, it was probably for me like a little bit more like Robert Goulet, potentially with Will Ferrell as Robert Goulet. So I think that I see that, even though I could definitely see the Kristen Wiig and Will Forte characters enter this sketch at any moment. So Nicole, what did you think of Truck Stop CD?
This made me so happy, and it's a good sketch to talk about in the context of which SNL cast members would Jake Gyllenhaal be if he were one. And I think that the Will Ferrell, Will Forte blend is perfect, because for me in this sketch, I was like, this is Jake Gyllenhaal at his best. It's the 10-1 energy with singing, like the kookiness, quirkiness, but with song is like, I couldn't even tell you exactly what the premise was, but all I knew was I was really having fun and laughing along and enjoying his singing. And like that's just perfect 10-1, is you really couldn't even put into words what's happening, but it's funny and it's goofy and it's silly. And so yeah, I think that Jake Gyllenhaal, like, he has that obvious Will Forte factor of the 10-1-ness, but then he also has the superstar Will Ferrell energy of like, he would also be in, and no offense, John, because I know Will Forte is your all-time number one, but he was best suited in those 10-1 end of the episode moments.
Oh, I'm not offended.
Yeah, I know you're not, but you know, like Will Forte, like that was his thing. Whereas Will Ferrell, like, you'd stick him at the top of the episode and all across every episode. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal has that type of factor as well. Like, it's like he might be best suited, and that might be at his best at the 10-1 spot, but also he's such a, like I think we'd also see him as like a utility player or like a master impressionist, or I think he could wear so many hats if he were in another life a cast member. And yeah, I'm impressed with him. This one really made me laugh. I agree. Amazing use of 80. I missed her all night. That was one of the main critiques I would have had, was I wish that we saw more 80, but honestly, we got her a few times. And if getting a little bit less 80 meant a lot more of people who don't typically have a lot of shine, I'll take that. It was good. And we did get a lot of memorable 80, and, not so much that we didn't get other people. So not too much to complain about. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, me too. Anthony, let's send it home. Wrap us up.
You got it. Like everybody else kind of said, solid 10-1. I did enjoy this one. I had that 90s, 2000 nostalgia, which we always enjoy. Consistent with the entire episode, Gyllenhaal definitely showed up. Definitely see the Forte blend there. So I'm glad we're kind of bringing that up. I definitely see that. And then yeah, overall it felt honestly a really solid way to just wrap up the show. I wish that there were a couple more highlights throughout, but for that first for the first sketch of the night to be the game show that ended up being my favorites, and then this one being my second favorite, I felt like they balanced each other out pretty well. I just wish there was a little bit more meat in between that I'd enjoyed.
Yeah, that's totally fair. All right, let's talk about what was cut from tonight. Cut for time throughout the night. We actually had a pre-tape that was supposed to air. It was called The Problem. That pre-tape was going to air right after Tombstone, before Couples Counselor. That one was cut during the evening for time. May end up online, so look out for that. We had cut address, obviously, the Andrew Dismukes and John Higgins update piece, which would have been fun to see. We'll see if we can get something or word on that one. Good Vibes Only was cut as well. That was a sketch from Please Don't Destroy and O'Kane. Then we had Dinner with the Dean, another cut sketch from Sublette, Gates, and Yim, and those were all cut at dress. All right. As we wrap up the Jake Gyllenhaal and Camila Cabello hot take show, I will ask you for your ratings of the episode out of 10, and chat, please do the same. Sammy Kay, starting with you.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, I think it was a solid episode. I think the good sketches weren't amazing, and the not so good sketches weren't absolutely terrible or anything like that. So I'd say overall, I'd give this episode a 7 out of 10.
Okay, Nicole, what do you think?
I'm so happy. I would give it a 9.1 out of 10. That's what I'm gonna be rewatching. I'm living my life, living my truth.
Okay, that's high praise. Okay, Anthony, what do you think?
Solid 6. Reason being, I felt like Jake Gyllenhaal was a great host, was consistent throughout the entire night, was so much fun to watch. I thought there were a lot of individual highlights, but there weren't a lot of things, and there weren't a lot of sketches that I think were super memorable, or ones that I'm gonna really be itching to watch again after tonight. So yeah, this one, solid 6. It had its moments, but it didn't totally do it for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, I think I'm going to give this a 7.5 for me. I think this was a 3/4 good episode, and really elevated by Jake Gyllenhaal. That's what I have to say. I think if this was your average host, this for me would be an average episode. If this was not a great SNL host, I really think this would not be great. So I was very impressed with him overall tonight. So really great job, Jake. And, honestly, thank you to everybody in the chat who gave their results as well. We put those numbers up on screen. So interesting to see all across the board, a lot of people thinking different things about the episode. So yeah, we had a lot of fun tonight on the Hot Take Show. We're going to have even more fun on Monday, breaking down all the sketches about Jake Gyllenhaal and Camila Cabello's episode on the SNL Network. And then on a Wednesday night, join us for the patron feedback show. We have 2 great patrons coming back to join us on a Wednesday night. To make sure to get your questions into the patron feedback show, make sure to fill out our patron feedback form that we post on Tuesday afternoon on Twitter and in our Instagram stories. We want to answer your questions about Saturday Night Live, so make sure to get them into the show, and I will make sure our patrons answer them. Thursday night, it is Hollywood Dish. We're back for one more Hollywood Dish before our next break. So, Nicole, you want to tell people why they should check out Hollywood Dish?
Yes, Hollywood Dish is the show where you get to hear everything about what's going on in pop culture in context of SNL, how it might relate to the upcoming SNL episodes. We just talk about everything going on, and it's like a primer for SNL. So when they make these random, obscure, like Ben and J-Lo references, for example, you know exactly what they're talking about. It's also just a really fun place to talk about like the stupidest things going on in culture that Rebecca North, my co-host, and I just love to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, for people asking in the chat, on Monday night on the roundtable will be Liz Shannon Miller from Consequence, Rich Tackenberg returns to the show, and Sean Grant. On Wednesday, our patron feedback show will feature patrons Johnny Fletcher, who I believe I saw here in the chat tonight, and Carlos Rodella will join us as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. Obviously, Hollywood Dish. And then next Saturday night, we'll be back for host and musical guest Lizzo performing double duty. So that'll be a lot of fun to get to see her as we take, we will have our last episode of April, and then we'll take a little bit of a break before our final 3 of the season. It's really hard to believe that we've made it this far. Okay, panel, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will start with you, Sammy. Please tell the listeners where they can reach out to you, and tell us, are you looking forward to Lizzo next week?
I'm super excited for next week's episode. Lizzo is someone who I haven't listened to like a ton of her music, but I thought she did a really good job at the Christmas show a couple years ago with Eddie Murphy. And she's very funny on TikTok. So I hope that translates to a really fun episode next week. You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And please, if you have not had the chance to check out our most recent Superfan Takeover, John joined us for a fun March Madness themed catchphrase bracket tournament. Yeah, catchphrase episode where we picked I nailed it. Pick the the greatest SNL catchphrase of all time. So hopefully you haven't been spoiled on who the winner was, and you.
You're lagging the juice, man.
Was that out the way?
Now that's gonna haunt my nightmares tonight, John. Thank you. But yes, if you haven't had the chance to watch that yet, please do so. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, for sure. Nicole.
Yes. Okay. My thoughts on Lizzo. I'm so excited. I think that this is a long time coming. Honestly, she is, in addition to being so talented musically, she's just always been such a like comedic force in her TikToks, in her social media content, everything she does. Like she is just a magnetic performer, and she puts comedy into everything, and like just such a natural born performer. Every TikTok I see of hers, I'm laughing. Like she's just really good at making everything funny and fresh and different. And I think that the episode's going to be amazing. I don't know if it'll top this one, because I just think Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the greatest actors of all time, and Lizzo, as talented and funny as she is, I don't know that she has as much experience being an actor. So I'm really, really curious to see it, because I'm a huge fan of hers and I want her to be amazing, and I think she will be. And you can find me. Do not go find me on Instagram. Do not go interact. Don't interact, or you might get in trouble yourself. Hopefully I'll get my account back soon, but don't even go near my Instagram account for your own good. But you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Nicole Rovine. And I'm a little bit overcompensating on my Twitter, like kind of stream of consciousnessing on there right now. So if you want to go check that out, follow me. TikTok, same thing. And yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun. I'm the biggest Jake apologist, so I'm so happy that I was here.
Yes, anytime, Nicole. So happy to have you. And Anthony, I honestly, man, I'm so happy to have you on the show. So I'm glad your move to the West Coast went well, and it's great to have you on the Hot Take Show once again.
Thank you very much. Excited for next week. Really excited for Lizzo. Hoping for good things. And yeah, I can be found at Conway at Instagram. Best place to reach out to me at.
Awesome. All right. Well, you can find us at the SNL Network to check out all the things we're doing. We posted a really fun chart today. So if you didn't see this stat, like I said, Jake Gyllenhaal coming back 15 plus years later, we posted all the hosts that have returned 15 plus, 10 plus, and 5 plus years later. We had some other fun charts this week, including how much did SNL talk about the slap last week? Well, we put together a pie chart for you to see that. So lots of fun things that you can find on our Instagram, on our Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok as well. You can find me at Jon Schneider 24 to talk to me about anything SNL related. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And for Sammy Kay, Nicole Rovine, Anthony Conway, and everybody in the chat, we will see you next time. Have a good one.